Welcome back to our channel. In 1950, the United States stood on the threshold of a new era. The echoes of World War II had faded into the clatter of factories, the bustling growth of suburbia, and the dawn of a generation unlike any before. In this age of reconstruction and innovation, the humble wheat penny continued its long-standing role in the pockets and palms of millions. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't flashy. It was copper, commonplace, unassuming. Yet, within the copper coils of this year's mintage, something subtle, something unplanned occurred. And that unplanned something would set off a slow-burning ripple that only decades later would ignite a storm in the numismatic world. Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco continued to mint their standard loads of Lincoln cents, with the wheat ears, reverse still proudly etched into the coin's tail end. Tens of millions of pennies flowed from the presses, indistinguishable to the naked eye, at least, at first glance. But buried within these uniform issues, particularly those bearing the D mint mark of Denver, an error began to surface. Not in a blaze, but in the quietest of ways, through whispers in collector circles, through puzzled glances beneath magnifying lenses, through something not quite aligning with what had been expected. It wasn't discovered overnight. Years passed. The 1950 D penny was hoarded, saved like its siblings, forgotten in jars, drawers, attics. It took time, an unreasonable amount of it, for someone to notice. And when they did, the coin had already traveled miles. The hands that found it weren't a scholar's, not at first. They were the hands of a modest Midwestern collector, sorting through a cache of wheat pennies passed down by a grandfather. The collector had no intention of stumbling onto a mystery. They were simply looking to complete a worn album, to find a clean 1950 D for a near-finished page. But the coin they pulled from the envelope didn't match others of the same mint. Something was wrong, and yet it was so right. The mint mark looked off. Not in position, not in alignment. It wasn't misaligned. It was doubled. A faint ghost of the D lurked just beneath the surface of the first. Not a shadow or smear. A strike. Clear if subtle. A doubled mint mark. And that moment, an eyebrow raised, a second glance triggered a domino effect that changed everything. The collector sat in silence, unsure. Was it damage? Post-mint tampering? The numismatic world is rife with illusions and deceptive marks. But no. This one was different. A loop confirmed what the naked eye had suspected. A clean doubling. A true RPM, a repunched mint mark born of human error in a time when minting still bore the fingerprints of men, and not just machines. He took the coin to a local show, quietly at first, showing it to a dealer who specialized in Lincoln cents. The dealer blinked, paused, leaned closer. Then closer still. He took the coin into the back room. Time passed. Too much time. When he returned, his face betrayed a seriousness that hadn't been there before. "Where did you get this?" he asked. The collector explained. The dealer nodded once, slowly. "I've seen a few of these," he said, "but not this sharp. Not this clean." And just like that, the quiet hum of curiosity began to swell. From there, whispers turned to study. Experts began to catalog variations. Not just one RPM, there were at least 3 confirmed varieties for the 1950 D, each with its own slight deviation in the repunching process. One showed a heavy northward doubling, another a subtler shadow to the southeast, and yet another almost hidden beneath the primary strike. They weren't glaring. They weren't dramatic. But they were real. And real errors, especially ones born from minting inconsistencies, are the blood and breath of coin collecting. At first, the value was minimal. The 1950 D wasn't rare. With over 334 million struck, how could it be? Even with the error, early auctions fetched modest premiums, $20, maybe $30. Some scoffed. Others watched. But the true believers, those who understood the long game of numismatics, began to squirrel them away. Not in hordes, but selectively. A clean example here, A crisp strike there, each one with that unmistakable hint of doubling. And then came the turn. As the decades rolled on, and wheat pennies fell ever more into the realm of nostalgia, interest in mint errors surged. Die varieties, doubled dies, RPMs, what once had been footnotes became chapters. The 1950D RPM, especially the boldest of the group, began to gain a cult following. Prices climbed steadily at first, then rapidly. $50 became $100. $100 became $250. Graded examples, especially those in uncirculated condition, began to sell out at shows. Collectors spoke of the error with reverence, dealers marked them, on hold, before the doors even opened. But here's where the story veers unexpectedly. One day, during a deep dive into mint archives and equipment logs, a retired numismatic researcher stumbled upon a curious detail, a recorded minting anomaly from late 1949 in the Denver Mint logs. A particular press had suffered a mint mark punch slippage, resulting in several dies being discarded and repunched manually, an outdated process, even then. But the entry listed something strange. Die batch reissued pending emergency approval. It read. The researcher dug further. These dies, originally intended for late 1949 cents, were retempered and reused for early 1950D production. That meant the error wasn't even truly of 1950 origin. It was a 1949 die masquerading under a 1950 mintage. An error rooted not in mechanical failure, but in a rushed procedural fix, a decision made in a forgotten office under pressure to meet quotas. This revelation turned the entire narrative on its head. The 1950D RPM was now not just an error, it was a relic of procedural deviation, a whisper of the mint's growing pains in transitioning fully to mechanized precision. Collectors began to draw timelines, linking the error to transitional techniques. Suddenly, the value was not just in the doubling. It was in the story. The coin became a time capsule. Grading services took notice. PCGS and NGC began to recognize specific RPM varieties more clearly, assigning distinct designations that set them apart. MS-65 examples skyrocketed in value. Some breached $1,000, then $1,500, then more. Auctions began to feature them with full-page spreads. Collectors who had once found them for pocket change now held treasures. One coin, verified to be among the earliest, struck with a faulty die, surfaced in California untouched in a paper roll of wheat cents for nearly 70 years. It was near flawless. Red-brown, minimal contact marks, and the mint mark doubling struck crisp, as if fresh from the press. It sold privately for $6,800. But the real shock came after grading. That coin was the highest graded known specimen for that RPM variety, and just as the dust seemed to settle, the twist no one anticipated emerged. While scanning digital images of coins for an online numismatic catalog, a young software engineer, also a casual collector, noticed something off about another 1950D penny in a publicly shared image. It bore the RPM doubling, but also something else. A faint doubling on the date itself. At first, it was dismissed as die deterioration doubling common, and not particularly valuable. But side-by-side comparisons told a different tale. The doubling on the date matched patterns known from major double die-averse. Specimens were reevaluated. And yes, though extremely rare, there appeared to be a handful of 1950D cents that bore both a repunched mint mark and a double die-averse. An error on error so rare, so unlikely, it defied initial belief. Only 3 verified examples have been confirmed to date, each now insured and stored in climate-controlled conditions. These coins do not appear in public auctions. They do not trade hands often. But their estimated value has crossed $15,000 per coin, depending on grade. And so, from a quiet year in post-war America emerged a copper cent that defied its intended ordinariness. A coin birthed from practical haste, marked by imperfection, buried in anonymity for decades, and slowly revealed piece by piece through curiosity, passion, and an insatiable quest for detail. The 1950 wheat penny began as one of millions. Now, it stands as a monument to error, discovery, and the intricate, unpredictable heartbeat of history. In 1954, the world was steeped in cautious optimism. The Korean War had just ended, and America found itself shifting from a wartime mindset to a period of post-war productivity. Factories that once produced military goods now manufactured cars, televisions, and consumer products that promised a brighter tomorrow. Yet amid the sweeping industrial progress and political undercurrents, the humble penny continued to do its job quietly, consistently, without ceremony. The Lincoln wheat cent still bore the profile of the 16th president and the twin stalks of wheat that had defined its reverse since 1909. But that year, beneath the din of the Denver Mint's churning presses, something else was born. A subtle, nearly invisible mistake. The 1954 penny wasn't rare by definition. With over 251 million struck at the Denver Mint alone, no one gave it a second thought. They passed through candy shops, gas stations, and barber shops. They rested in the bottom of coat pockets and were flung into wishing wells by children. But as the years passed, and as coins came and went from circulation, a select few from this massive mintage began to draw attention. Not because they were brighter or shinier, but because something about them just didn't look quite right. Decades would pass before this anomaly took center stage. It began with a collector, an older gentleman from Illinois, who had spent years combing through wheat pennies one by one. His method was patient, exacting. He wasn't chasing fame, just precision. He noticed the 1954 coin looked different under magnification. At first, he dismissed the odd curvature beneath the mint mark as damage. But a closer inspection revealed a separate, distinct impression, an RPM. A repunched mint mark. The D wasn't struck once, but twice. The second punch was slightly offset, creating a ghostly shadow below the primary mark. The doubling was subtle, clean, unmistakable. He marked it, placed it in a flip, and tucked it away with a note. Struck twice? His curiosity grew. He began reviewing every 1954 he could find, rolls from local banks, coins from trade shows, purchases from estate sales. And the pattern held. Though not every 1954 bore the repunched mark, a few certainly did. He was not alone. Across the country, other eagle-eyed collectors began finding their own examples. Some showed a northward doubling, others leaned south. The punch errors varied in depth and clarity, but the signature was unmistakable. The human hand had interfered with the machine. Unlike modern minting, where every movement is automated and digitized, the 1950s still carried remnants of manual labor in the minting process. Mint marks were applied to dies by hand. It was a system prone to misalignment, mispunching, and corrections. And in 1954, it seems that several dies received extra attention. The result was a variety of RPMs that, while subtle, carried a wealth of historical and collectible value. At first, these errors flew under the radar. The numismatic community had long since placed its attention on the more well-known RPMs, those from 1955, 1960, and 1972 that had caught the public eye. The 1954 remained in the background. It was a whisper in a crowded room. But slowly, that whisper turned into a murmur. Collectors began trading notes, comparing RPM variations, building a clearer picture of just how many existed. One particular variety, now known as RPM 001, stood out, featuring a bold eastward doubling on the mint mark. Clean, distinct, and rare, grading services took notice. Attribution guides were updated. And as awareness grew, so did demand. What had once sold for pennies above face value began fetching $20, then $50, then over $100 for uncirculated specimens. The market adjusted. Dealers began setting aside any example that bore the telltale signs of a repunched mint mark. And the collectors, who had quietly hoarded them began to realize just how rare their finds truly were. Then came a moment no one expected. During an estate auction in Kansas, a dusty box of coin rolls was brought to the block. Most bidders paid it little mind wheat cents were common, after all. But one roll, still sealed and labeled 1954 DBU, caught the attention of a savvy collector. He won it for just over market value and brought it home without much fanfare. It wasn't until later that evening, under the soft glow of a desk lamp, that he unwrapped the roll and discovered a miracle. 23 of the 50 coins bore the RPM 001 signature. Even more astonishing, several were near pristine, with full red luster and no visible contact marks. Word spread fast. Grading houses rushed to authenticate and encapsulate the coins. Several came back MS-66 red and almost unheard of condition for a mint error of that era. The coins were quickly scooped up by serious collectors, with prices skyrocketing. One MS-66 red example of RPM 001 sold for $3,200 at auction, setting a benchmark. Others followed, each pushing the value further, solidifying the 1954D RPM as a cornerstone for Lincoln cent specialists. But the story wasn't finished. Amid all the excitement, a strange pattern began to emerge in a subset of RPM specimens. A few displayed not only a doubled mint mark, but also an anomaly on the reverse. Specifically, the right wheat stalk appeared thicker, almost swollen compared to standard issues. Under microscope, the detail showed a slight hub doubling, an entirely different error layered atop the RPM. It wasn't cataloged. It wasn't known. But it existed. What had once been a straightforward mintmark error was suddenly something more, a compound error. A double die reverse paired with a repunched mintmark. Fewer than a dozen examples have been authenticated, and they are held tightly in private collections. The existence of these dual-error coins added a new chapter to the story, and further cemented the year 1954 as an overlooked treasure trove for error collectors. Speculation grew over how such a combination could happen. The leading theory? In the rush to meet production quotas during a period of equipment maintenance, a repunched die was mistakenly paired with a previously rejected reverse die one that had shown signs of minor hub doubling. This unorthodox pairing likely resulted in a small batch of coins being struck before the error was caught and the die pairing was corrected. This revelation pushed values even higher. Auction houses began listing the dual-error coins with no reserve, letting the market dictate their worth. And the market responded fiercely. The most pristine example, a dual-error 1954D graded MS-65 red with RPM 001 and DDO reverse, sold in a private sale for $9,800. It has not resurfaced since. Today, the 1954D penny may still be found in the occasional old coffee can or tucked away in a childhood coin album. Most of them are ordinary, worn, tarnished, passed over, but a few carry history etched into their copper skin. Not just history of the man on the obverse, but of the hands and machines behind the scenes, the moments of human error that turn the ordinary into something extraordinary. A standard 1954D penny in circulated condition might fetch a mere few cents. Even most uncirculated examples hover in the modest range. But one with a bold RPM 001, especially in MS-65 red or higher, can sell for between $600 and $2,000 depending on demand and condition. And if that same coin bears the rare reverse doubling, its value climbs steeply, often crossing $7,000, with top condition specimens nearing the $10,000 mark. A simple penny, a forgotten roll, an overlooked error, and suddenly, what began as copper struck in haste becomes one of the most sought-after wheat cents of its generation. In the year 1956, the United States was riding the wave of post-war prosperity. Across the country, daily life was punctuated by simple moments: pennies exchanged at corner stores, coins jingling in pockets, and the quiet hum of industry moving forward. The Lincoln wheat penny, a design introduced back in 1909, was still circulating in great numbers. The Denver Mint alone struck hundreds of millions of these 1-cent coins, each stamped with Lincoln's steady profile on the front and 2 sheaves of wheat embracing the reverse. These coins were unremarkable to most, just common change, but among them hid a secret born from the very machinery of the mint. During the bustling production run, subtle imperfections crept into some coins, imperfections invisible to the hurried eye but unmistakable to the trained collector. One such anomaly appeared in the mint mark on certain 1956 pennies bearing the Denver D. This mint mark, instead of being a single, clean impression, revealed signs of a repeated strike. What collectors now call a repunched mint mark (RPM) error, where the D was impressed onto the die more than once, slightly shifted between impressions. The result: a mint mark that looks doubled or shadowed, a tiny whisper of minting mishap frozen in copper. Years passed without anyone paying special attention to these nuances. The penny was simply a penny. That is, until a keen-eyed collector came across a worn 1956 D penny with an unusual mark on the mint mark itself. At first glance, it seemed like nothing more than a smudge or a manufacturing quirk, but as he examined the coin under a magnifying glass, a strange pattern emerged, a faint doubling in the D mint mark. Intrigued, he delved deeper, scouring coin catalogs and forums. Soon, he realized this was no ordinary imperfection. It was a recognized error, one that made the coin rarer than standard issues. His excitement grew with every discovery. Finding one such coin felt like uncovering a hidden treasure chest in plain sight. As he scoured through rolls of pennies, each new find brought a surge of adrenaline, the thrill of the hunt transforming a casual hobby into an obsession. But more than that, this error told a story about the minting process itself, how the human hand, machinery, and the rush of production sometimes collided, leaving behind these subtle echoes. The collector's journey wasn't just about finding coins. It was about connecting with history, understanding the small details that differentiate the ordinary from the extraordinary. With every 1956 D RPM penny discovered, the community of enthusiasts grew, and the value of these coins began to shift from pennies to meaningful sums. Initially, the price bump was modest, a few dollars here and there, but as more collectors recognized the rarity and demanded these coins for their collections, the value soared. The market for error coins, like the 1956 D RPM penny, has seen fluctuations over the years. Early on, these coins sold for only slight premiums above face value. But as knowledge spread, so did demand. By the 1980s and 1990s, well-preserved examples were commanding hundreds of dollars at auction. Their scarcity, combined with the unique story behind the error, made them coveted items among collectors. Even today, the prices can vary widely based on condition and specific error characteristics, but the premium for a well-preserved 1956 D RPM penny remains substantial. What makes this error particularly captivating is how subtle it is. The doubled D mint mark does not scream for attention. Instead, it demands patience, a sharp eye, and a magnifying glass. Under close scrutiny, you see overlapping lines in the mint mark, the telltale sign that the die was repunched after an initial strike. This wasn't a defect that compromised the coin's structural integrity, but a delicate dance of precision and error during production. But the story doesn't end there. Some examples of the 1956 D penny with this RPM error have also displayed a fascinating additional quirk, a slight doubling on the obverse itself. This double die characteristic means that some design elements, such as Lincoln's cheek or the date, appear slightly doubled or blurred. The combination of a repunched mint mark and a doubled die on the obverse is an especially rare find, one that drives collectors into a frenzy when discovered. This unexpected twist adds another layer of mystery and value to the coin. What began as a simple minting mistake became a multifaceted numismatic gem, with overlapping errors increasing its rarity and appeal. Collectors have since scoured countless rolls of pennies to find this dual error variant, transforming it from a hidden anomaly into a prized possession. Over time, the value of these coins has mirrored their intrigue. A circulated 1956 D penny might be worth mere cents, but a 1956 D penny featuring a repunched mint mark can easily fetch between $50 and $300 depending on its grade. Those rare dual-error specimens, boasting both the RPM and double die, can command prices exceeding $1,000 in high-grade conditions. This dramatic escalation shows how a minor flaw can transform a humble penny into a prized collector's treasure. The path from everyday coin to collector's gem highlights the blend of history, chance, and human curiosity. Each 1956 D RPM penny tells a story of a bustling mint in mid-century America, of the imperfections that arise in any massive production, and of the collector's relentless pursuit to uncover something unique amid the ordinary. This coin is a testament to the fact that even the smallest objects, when examined closely, can reveal unexpected secrets, and that value is often as much about story and rarity as it is about metal. Today, the 1956 D repunched mint mark penny stands not just as currency from a bygone era, but as a symbol of numismatic fascination. Its fluctuating worth reflects the evolving knowledge and passion of collectors worldwide. What once passed unnoticed now commands attention and respect in coin circles. For those lucky enough to hold one, it is a tangible link to history, a puzzle piece of the mint story, and a reminder that perfection sometimes comes with a double strike. The journey of this penny, from everyday change to rare collectible, reminds us to look a little closer, to appreciate the subtle details hidden beneath the surface, and to treasure the unexpected discoveries that make collecting so rewarding. By the time you consider the full rarity and condition of these coins, you'll find that a 1956 D repunched mint mark penny in excellent condition can be valued at up to $1,200 or more, especially if it also carries that rare double die on the obverse. That value, grown from an unnoticed error into a coveted rarity, captures the essence of numismatics, a world where history, art, and chance converge in the copper glow of a small coin.